Yeah, we've been practicing very hard for this. I think MYM makers are going to go all out aggressive in the early stages of the game, so what we're going to have to do is try to fend them off with a lot of vision and then just try to outlane them.
Welcome back to the 2014 European LCS Spring Promotion Tournament live from Cologne, Germany. We're just minutes away from round 2 in today's fight between Meet Your Makers and the Copenhagen Wolves. But first, I'm happy to join by Team Solo Mid's new mid laner Bjergsen. I gotta say, it still sounds a little weird to me. But first off, you're back in Europe. How have you been enjoying your time here?
I've only been here for like a day, but I'm really enjoying it. It's good old Germany, and it's nice to be back. And being at the old places, like the old food places and stuff, is really cool. Meeting all my old friends from other teams and just in general, the crew here, ESL crew, it's just really nice to be here. And
we're also very happy to have you. Now, I've seen you talking in some interviews saying how it's going well with the team. You seem to be getting along quite well, but it's the results that are important. And how have you guys been adjusting to the new patch to get those results effectively?
I feel like we've been doing really well in the new patch. We had some time to adjust, in the beginning, we had some communication issues because we kind of lost a shot caller, and I kind of had to step it up because I wasn't used to being a shot caller in NIP in my previous teams. But after just a little time, I feel like we really got the hang of it, and we're doing really well in scrims now.
Talking about that shot calling, I heard Reginald say in an interview, we'd really go without a shot caller now, but have you now stepped up and taken that role?
I haven't fully taken the role, but I feel like I've stepped it up, and I'm one of the people who talk more in the team, but I don't think we're going to have a set shot caller, but I think especially me and Expressial are doing really good, especially.
Good pun there.
No, that wasn't even on purpose.
All right. Now, of course, you've stepped in for Reginald. Reginald has become your coach, and how have you been experiencing him as a coach? How are his skills on that level?
I've never really had a coach like with us where we practice, and it's really nice to have someone who can constantly look at mistakes, tell us what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right at times. But it's nice, and we can improve really fast, and he tells us what we do wrong every game and what we can improve on, and in general what we can improve on with our attitude and how we can practice to become more efficient and how to improve faster. And it's just really nice to have an analyst, and Reggie's doing a good job.
Yeah, and it must also be needed now because you have, of course, 314 coming in, and we've seen for now the item builds and the champion picks for mid lane have stayed roughly the same. What has changed for you in this patch?
Mid lane is probably the role that's changed the least of all the roles, but I feel like the new ward trinket, or the ward trinket is mostly used in mid lane, just really helps you play aggressive in early game because you can drop down a ward and then you have vision on at least one side, whereas before I felt kind of limited to playing aggressive because I didn't have much vision, so I had to constantly be afraid of jungle ganks, so I think that's the biggest difference. You can pressure really hard and push the tower down faster with the ward trinket.
And that must be essential for you because in NIP a lot of times you carried a lot of games. Do you feel that that weight is on your shoulders now in TSM as well? And does those vision changes help you or do they work against you?
I think it's neutral with the vision changes. I don't feel like I have to carry. I think the team does really well without me. And especially Wild Turtle is a really good player, and I've always thought so. And he carries games just as much as me, and I'm really enjoying playing on the team with him.
Okay, cool. Something else I'd like to ask you is you've commented that you think that the NA solo queue, you've played a lot of that, is really chill. And there's been a comment from HotshotGG saying, well, that's exactly the reason why NA isn't going so far as a region. You can compare both US solo queue and, of course, NA. What do you think?
I really don't think the difference in solo queue is that big. Maybe that's just me, and I just don't really see the difference. But I don't think there's much difference, and I think both servers are equally relaxed, or whatever you want to call it, and I just feel like, I think it's pretty much the same, at least for me.
Okay, very political answer. Finally, of course, on Sunday, you'll be playing with Team Solomid against the Lemon Dogs, and this is, of course, a whole new lineup, but guys, you know, Schleia is in the mid lane. You went 3-1 against him in the spring split when he was on AAA. How do you feel going into that matchup?
I haven't played against Schleia in a long time. I can't remember when I last played him, but I know he's a good player, and I'm not going to underestimate him, and we're definitely not going to underestimate Lemon Dogs just because they're a new team, because I know all the players in the team, and I know they're good individually, but it's going to be really fun to face up against Schleia again. Okay,
well, we're looking forward to that. Enjoy your time here, and give a good performance on Sunday. Thank you very much. And we're going to send it over to Demon and Jat at the desk for the play-by-play of Game 2.
Give a good performance, but not too good. See.
We need Europe to get some points on there. Thank you very much, Soxo. And as she said, it is indeed time, of course, for the second in this best-of-5 bout between the Copenhagen Wolves and Meet Your Makers. MYM is coming to this game off an impressive victory where they beat up the Wolves in a team fight after team fight, racking up 4 aces on their way to the win.
Yeah, MYM won a lot of team fights in that game, and it was a pretty bloody game overall. I mean, 31 kills and then 69 assists in that matchup is rather explosive for the games we're used to seeing. I think there was definitely some nerves that came into that one. Obviously, the big swing was Kuban early on, and I have to say Thresh hooks later, but with all that being said, in the later on fights with Dr. Mundo, like, a full 6-item 600 CS Caitlyn was barely moving his health bar.
I'm interested to see. Kuban's got a heat pack in his hand there. Because personally up here, it's pretty warm. And how hot does he need his hands to play that Mundo?
Rather warm. I mean, it's got like fire rings around the bottom
all
of
got
half the time.
They must be cold up on the stage. Who knows?
Nerves.
Maybe we could have
We've talked about this in the past, but a lot of times as a gamer,
just things that you've done.
Ooh, as a gamer, when you get, it's the fight or flight response. Like if you're nervous or having anxiety, the heat goes away from your hands right away. And the way to combat that is, a lot of times I sit on my hands, but that's kind of hard to do when you're playing. So that helps.
You kind of need them on the keyboard and the mouse. It's kind of an integral part of the game. But what do we make of it? What are we expecting in the picks and bans? Are we going to see some changes that obviously would have been in that? Evelyn maybe wasn't that much of an impact maybe.
No, I mean, the big thing right in the last game from MYM is they got so many of the power picks with like Lucian and Mundo and Eve and Ziggs all on the same team. And Copenhagen Wolves kind of let them have it for the most part. But now that the first pick has been swapped around and Copenhagen Wolves is on the blue side, there's no way MYM wants to give them Lucian, which is a little bit surprising because it definitely didn't seem like Lucian was the one that swung that game entirely. They just want to keep it away from Forgiven.
Well, Mundo taken away, like you say. Lucian has been banned out. Renekton, no surprise there, taken away from Youngbuck. Kassadin, the final ban, they're taking that one away. But that does leave Shyvana on the table, and it seems that they will lock that one in first off.
Getting rid of the Dr. Mundo, and then Shyvana, which was banned in the first game, is a very friendly pick for, I think, Youngbuck. They can obviously jungle it if they want to with Amazing, because Shyvana can do both of those roles just fine. But especially with the style that we saw from the top laners in the last game, the Shyvana will definitely fit Youngbuck better.
Well, Kuban and Makata making those choices. What will they go with this time around? Will it be an Annie? Annie available, of course, for... was unlimited, they picked it last time. Will Libic choose to go that route? Will they go for Sivir? Sivir available, of course, as well as that AD carry. Instead, it was Caitlyn we saw coming out from the Copenhagen Wolves. Didn't even get picked at all in the last match, despite the fact the massive dominance that Captain Jack had on it just this morning.
Yeah,
wow,
I feel like the Sivir Annie would be a really nice combination, but they don't have to pick it right away. Because they know that Copenhagen Wolves didn't pick Sivir when given the opportunity in the last game, and they're banking on the fact that Forgiven is not going to want to play that, and instead want to go for Caitlyn again, just like that. So MYM could still do that if they want to later down the road, but getting the Ziggs, since Chara was so effective with it in the last match, was a higher priority.
And I'm interested to see which way Mackler's going to go. We saw him on Lucian in the last match. Vayne used to be his big champion of choice. We'll see how he's adapted. Obviously, Lucian seemed to work very well for him. Whether he's going to go towards that Sivir. Sivir, so strong right now, yet. And it's interesting how the AD carries, because AD carries can be a funny beast. Some will think one champion is completely strong, and I am talking about Double Lift here, his tier list.
A little bit. I mean, he doesn't think Caitlyn is that strong in the new patch either, but obviously Forgiven has other ideas. The early lane pushing the Copenhagen Wolves can get out of that is what they're kind of banking on right now, especially if that's a support Zyra, which it most likely is. We haven't seen much support Zyra so far in the 2014 season.
It might be a mid Zyra. Cowtard has played mid Zyra in the play-ins, and he played it in the LCS.
Yeah, mid Zyra is still potent, and especially against an Annie, since Zyra is relatively squishy early on in the game, it would be an extremely dangerous proposition to try to do that. And a Twitch being locked in by MYM.
Okay, double stealth being picked up there. So Evelyn and Twitch, so that can be a scary beast in itself.
They were basically just picking what carry they would want to try to have against Caitlyn. This basically tells me lane swap off the bat, or they're just hoping Copenhagen Wolves picks a squishy support. And yeah, that's
a wise choice.
That's not mid Zyra, that's for sure. That's going to be the support Zyra.
Yeah, support Zyra, mid Cowtard once again on Kha'Zix, and Lee Sin being a very wise choice, of course. Lee Sin, one of those champions that has really benefited from this patch, getting himself a free ward.
Definitely early on.
Yeah.
He's able to jump through, but especially with people hitting 6 items so radically early in some of these games, he does have that late game fall that they have to be worried about since the last game went 56 minutes.
Well, Riven potentially going to be picked up. Everybody, I'm sure, has seen Faker on Riven. His things Faker does, I think it is. But Riven really has become another strong pick in that top lane.
It's going to be a much different style for Kuban if he wanted to play Riven in that top lane, since Mundo is very, very tanky, and you have to be very tricky with Riven. The Elise could also be a pick for them up there.
Elise was the champion that basically he won with. If you didn't get Elise, things tended to go awry. Awry is the word I'm after for Kuban in that top lane. And that was always the worry. At DreamHack, he was allowed it, but good God, he switches last minute to Tryndamere, who we saw this morning not doing too good.
Wow.
By Long Panda it was.
Yeah, fight Rage with Rage right there. It's going to be Young Buck on Shyvana against Tryndamere and Kuban. And I think early on, especially in levels 3 and 4, Shyvana pushes him around for a while. And I think that's an incredibly difficult matchup for Kuban if he wants to have an impact in this. And it also means that instead of having the Super Mundo tank that MYM had last game, they don't have any tanks right now, which is a much different play style.
Yeah, and there's nothing in the team other than that's changed. They need that tank in there, surely. So
they're still running a team composition with very lacking hard CC. They're completely relying once again on their support player, Libic. He's got a more reliable CC this time in Annie, but it's still putting a lot of pressure on that guy.
Well, crazy, crazy picks indeed. Overall team fights, who knows how this one's going to go. But of course, Copenhagen Wolves are chasing this game down because Meet or Makers managed to pick up that first game. A lot of people, including you guys at home that voted for Copenhagen Wolves, you had him as what, 67%? I think 63% that thought it was going to win. But so far, Meet or Makers, the LCS team that is looking to be relegated or maybe staying in there, are looking good.
And actually that 63% vote with Copenhagen Wolves as its favorites was a little generous towards the MYM side, actually, based on the people that I've been talking to. A lot of the pros that I've been speaking with and all the people around have been saying the Copenhagen Wolves is just dominating. And even thinking back to that last game, I was like, did Copenhagen Wolves win that one? They were just pushing in for the win near the... Oh, no, they lost it.
And interestingly, for Meet Your Makers, the coach that is there was with them for Season 3, but he was never there at the event. Maybe that's something that they've obviously looked at and thought, we really need to stay in there. You know, there's a lot of money on the line for these teams. This is the biggest game, no doubt about it, that these teams will have played in their life. Obviously, Meet Your Makers were there before, up against Dragonborns. They went 0-2 down, they came back and won 3-2. This time they've got that lead. What will they do with it? Will they take an advantage? Meet Your Makers used to be the aggressive level 1 team, and now with Annie, I think they're going to go again.
And they made a good call in the previous game. It's a good thing Unlimited decided to ward over that wall instead of standing in it, because more often than not, you'll actually see someone waiting in that spot for a potential invade. They do know where the 5-man squad is right now for MYM, and they might be looking to meet it. You can counter the anti-stun a little bit if Zyra can land a Grasping Roots on as many people, but that is a dangerous proposition if Copenhagen Wolves wants to try to attack this.
They're looking at it. I mean, obviously, like you say, the Grasping Roots, that could do a lot of damage, but what follow-up really have they got? Amazing could scout it out with his kick. He knows where they are, but that's done. If they all pile in at the wrong time, would catch them all off guard. And those bombs are going to hurt. They're going to be area effect. Mercana's going to be doing the damage, and God help you if you give Tryndamere an early kill. And Kautard is thinking about it.
They want to try and find where they are without having to commit too hard, and they still haven't found them. They don't know if MYM has all recalled back, or if they're still sitting in their red. So it makes a very difficult decision for Amazing and his jungle start. He's erring on the side of caution and going back to his blue, which means if MYM was a little bit more bold, they would have stolen the red. But instead, it's just going to be normal jungle starts for both guys.
Well, it is going to be a return, and like you say, normal jungle start. That means that it is going to be a lane switch for the 2v1, but actually they're going to be up against each other because both teams have lane switched. Kuban helping out on the blue buff of Mercana. Mercana will be taking that one, but that means we are going to see Makler and Libic on Annie and Twitch up against Forgiven Unlimited. We didn't see this in game 1. That time it's going to be Caitlyn and Zyra. And Caitlyn and Zyra, that's a long-range poke they've got.
Yeah, 650 range on Caitlyn and 575 auto attack range from Zyra. But Annie is a rather aggressive lane against Zyra. This could be incredibly bloody as far as a 2v2 lane goes. And we actually don't get to see 2v2 lanes that often anymore. So many teams just lane swap and 2v1 as almost a default strategy because they think it's safer.
And both the bottom lanes, or top laners as they'd be known as, of Kubon on Tryndamere and Youngbuck on Shyvana, they've both gone for that Doran shield. Both went back and got themselves a pot as well, but that health pot already chugged down by Youngbuck because he took a lot of damage early on there. McKenna picking himself up the double buff. Will we see him going for a kill lane?
Yeah, I'm expecting a little bit of action early on in the game, but not as much as we saw in the last match. Last time we saw very early 3v1 turret dives and an incredibly strong push strategy from Copenhagen Wolves coming out early. Probably not going to happen this time because it's actually amazing trying to guess where Eve is, and he actually has guessed wrong at this moment.
Oh, the flash stun on towards Unlimited. Is it going to be enough? The exhaust went down. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, they're going for Charu. It's both lanes. It's the top that's going to get the first blood, but there's definitely going to be a kill in the middle. Charu goes down. Meanwhile, in that mid lane, and it was Unlimited down in the top.
Well, that was a bad call that I just made because there was a whole bunch of aggression that happened from both the mid lane and the top lane right there. Really just who can gank first, and they both decided to gank at exactly the same time. It just so happened that Char was pushed up on Ziggs in the mid lane while MYM was getting pushed in the top, and the junglers both went for the kill rather than the counter.
Ignite going down, they're going for it, both teams. Youngbuck's going to get caught out. Kubon's got this health. Has he got enough? He manages to live through it, but the minions firing, but he survives with a slither of health, and Kubon gets the kill in the bottom.
And he leveled up as he was able to get that first kill. Both these guys were dangerous, and here's a potential counter gank, but it's a 3v3.
It's Forgiven, they got stunned on, but Amazing comes around the side, and they realize Makla's in trouble. Makla surely will go down. Yes, he gets caught out. That's going to be Lipic in trouble as well. It's a double kill for Forgiven.
These games are real hard to keep track of right now, but the double kill going on to Forgiven is the best person to be able to get those. He almost took over the last game despite not having a strong start, and getting that double kill and more turret push time is great for Copenhagen Wolves.
Well, we're 5 minutes into this game. It's 3-2 in kills already, and the first turret of the game may well be going down to the Copenhagen Wolves. They're starting off with much more aggression this time around, and Kautard once again getting onto Charu. There's a lot of damage coming in here. Has to put his rubber ducky down to keep himself safe.
Yeah, these guys have seen this matchup play out in the last game, and Kautard knows he can make some aggressive plays early. Knowing that he's also starting 1 kill to 0 means Charu has to play from behind for the remainder of this laning phase.
So that's an early advantage for the Copenhagen Wolves. Kubon, though, is getting farm on Tryndamere. This is something we've got to keep our eye on, because keeping this one-on-one lane actually seems to be giving Kubon the advantage. And Tryndamere, he has to get that farm going and will become a menace late game.
And especially since he got those early kills onto Youngbuck, he is substantially strong right now. With the early Vamp Scepter, Youngbuck can't put enough harass down onto him to push him out of the lane. And since Youngbuck died and didn't get farm, he hasn't been able to stack armor yet. So ideally in this lane, Youngbuck Shyvana should get an early Warden's Mail or a Chain Vest and get either a Sunfire Cape or Randoms right off the bat, but he might not have time to get there.
And it seems obviously going to switch him into a 2v1. We do see Makla and Libic back in towards that top lane, so potential gank coming out here as Unlimited tries to sneak around the side, gets that ward down on towards him. Kubon continuing to put the pressure down. Not too worried at the moment, but I think he's going to back off in a moment.
Yeah, he's a level 6 Tryndamere with a full rage bar. He's just going to try and push up that wave as aggressively as he can, and then just kind of go back to happy time. If anything, it was just a slow lane swap by MYM because they want to be able to get that turret, and it's going to cost them a dragon.
Well, it will cost them that dragon, like you're saying. It's going to be easily picked up by the Copenhagen Wolves. No response from Meteor Makers, which means are they going to try and create something at the top? Level 6 already coming out for Charo. Mega Inferno Bomb is available if they push on towards Youngbuck.
4 people are looking at this gank in the top lane. Youngbuck needs to leave right now if he wants to stay alive.
Makla McKenna pushes through the ward, but he's not going to get spotted. Youngbuck in trouble now. There's 4 members closing in. Here they come on towards Youngbuck. The stun goes in there. It's going to be the easiest thing they can do. Exhaust, I'm not even sure that was required. It will be a kill, and surely the tower secured.
Easy kill, since they ganked before Youngbuck was level 6, and because he didn't see it coming, it was just MYM with some easy execution. But they set 4 for that. They didn't really need to, and it gives some free push time for Copenhagen Wolves in the middle.
Mega Inferno Bomb thrown into that mid lane while he backs off. Bottom lane, look at the pressure they're putting on towards this turret. Kubon unable to keep them off it, and Forgiven really is a tower-pushing monster right now.
Just like they did in game 1, they're using that Caitlyn to push as fast as possible. And since they're just against the Tryndamere, there's nothing to repel that push right now.
Well, we see Amazing stealing away the blue buff. It's another advantage picked up by the Copenhagen Wolves. Meteor Makers reacting instantly, getting straight around for the blue buff in the top lane, but that's the second turret of the game now for Copenhagen Wolves.
Only 1 turret was taken back by MYM as well. At this point in the game, you really have to start, if you're Copenhagen Wolves, figuring out how you're going to continue this one, because they've already taken the Dragon. They've already taken 2 outer turrets, and it's incredibly difficult to push against Charu's Ziggs in the mid lane. So they're gonna want to get a little bit more ward control and maybe start getting some jungle buffs in their favor. Otherwise, they might stall out and allow MYM to kind of get some of the turrets back or pick up their farm a little bit.
Now, let's keep our eye on the mid lane as well. See if they go with different builds. Obviously, they were up against each other, the exact same lane setup this time around. Double Doran's Blade rings coming out from Charu this time around, instead of building up the armor, of course, stacking out that tier.
Well, in the last game, Charu actually went haunting guys before building any armor. The only difference in this game is he's went for a Doran's instead of going an extra Doran's instead of that haunting guys. I think because he just is a little bit more concerned about Cowtard. He's really starting to respect that Kazakhstan lane.
Meanwhile, Kubon in this top lane, living through that burnout of Youngbuk, keeping the pressure on. In mid lane, Ace in the hole being used on towards Charu. 4 members of Copenhagen Wolves here trying to drive through this middle, but you can see 3 members of Meteor Makers reacting. Makata catching him out the side there. Stuns being blown out from Libic. He's still got it available if he needs it. Flash Tibbers isn't available yet because he's still only level 5.
And this is just Copenhagen Wolves trying to round up all of the outer turrets so they can start trying to take more control of the map. They're putting the sweeper down in the jungle to make sure no one's coming around from the sides other than Makate, who they obviously can never see.
Kubon been driven actually towards the top lane. Actually starting to be pressured by Youngbuk now in that top, so maybe starting to drop here. Libic using out that stun, so he's going to try and build that one up. You see him throwing out the shield and the flames, trying to get himself back up there, but Cowtard, he's heading north. He's going to see if he can get something from Kubon, so he can sniff around that red buff, but it's not available.
Yeah, and I think they're running into this issue of not being able to push at Ziggs right now. And something that I think is attributed a little bit to the 2014 season right now is how hard it is for teams to push in and finish games. But a small part of that actually has to be attributed to Ziggs and his increased play rate. Because even in Season 3, if you're up against a Ziggs, you're not pushing that lane easy whatsoever, and that's why MYM is holding this turret so easily.
Cowtard hoping he can try and catch out Makata in that jungle, but instead he doesn't take the bait, didn't follow him through, walked past that ward that Cowtard had put down in that little bush there, but instead they are going to move around, and it's actually Forgiven they're going to try and collapse on towards. It's a pink ward.
Yeah, Forgiven needs to be a little careful, but it's really just trying to shut down Tryndamere and not being able to at the moment. Youngbuck still hasn't gotten enough armor, and even when he does, it's going to be difficult to stop Kubon from farming there.
Yeah, and in terms of farm, Forgiven has a rather large advantage building up over Makler. Makler's been down in this bottom lane for quite a while getting the free farm. That's why you can see he's pushed it down towards that tower, but Forgiven quickly reacts, comes down there, got himself that kill early on, which got him that BF sword early on, and instead Libic comes around to try and help out and get that new Wraith down that managed to get the kill on Unlimited earlier on.
Yeah, no one can say that the Season 4 jungler or the 2014 season jungler doesn't have an impact, because we clearly saw the White pick up a kill in the previous game. I think, actually, though, that MYM is biding their time a little bit. When Makler finishes his Blade of the Ruin King on Twitch, we might see a bit of a roaming stealth death squad with Eve and Twitch, where we would see Twitch popping up right next to someone with the Blade of the Ruin King active, as Makata jumps in with Even. Really, almost no real way of scouting that for Copenhagen Wolves. I think that's the way MYM was planning on getting back in this game.
And obviously don't forget the unseen impact that we have with Evelyn and Twitch on the same team, which is the amount of gold they've got to invest in those pink wards.
Yeah, and that's kind of what used to be the case, but now people don't consider pink wards a huge counter to it. They're building a few and putting them in places, but if Makade, or anyone else for that matter, walks over it, they can make it a safe passage for Eve very easily without having to spend any pink wards of their own.
Now we see, again, the pressure in towards this middle lane, but it's the top again. Youngbuck and Kubon going at it, head to head. The minions in favor of no one, really. Ignite's being used out there. Kubon spinning away. He has got the health regen, manages to get himself another critical hit, but it's going to be Youngbuck going for it. Pops the ult down. Kubon was just waiting for that to bide his time. His ultimate is going to be running. Is in limited range. The Ignite is ticking. He should have enough regen to survive through it. He does and gets away, but it's still a close fight between those two.
And I'll say that's much more exciting than the Mundo Nasus fights we saw in the last game, because at least they're getting a little bit low when they fight each other, and no teleports this time to try and get back up. With the pink ward straight in the Dragon there, they know that Copenhagen Wolves is going to have to respond if they want vision of this Dragon.
Yep, so we can see the Dragon is going to get pulled out there. Meteor Maker's immediately reacting, backing away from Copenhagen Wolves. Early pressure, and again, Copenhagen Wolves not interested in starting it. They want to try and create a pick, and the damage on Charu may well be it. Mega Inferno Bomb was what turned the first Dragon in the last game. Will it be this time around?
And they know that Charu is now both low on health and mana, so fighting may not be the most disastrous thing, but they definitely are battling for that middle brush there. So many pink wards getting thrown in back and forth. Now just 2 regular wards, but they cannot gain total control of that vision war.
The Death Bush, as it's called, just above, but not that one, really. The tower being cleared out once again. Charu just off the back, and this is a pincer move that so rarely works that they may have to try and set up.
We'll really see if MYM can get any kind of catch. I mean, it's on Libic right now with the anti-Tibbers flash stun if they want to get it. If somehow Libic can land a stun while Charu combos, they could take out almost whoever they want at the start of the fight. And if they were to take out Forgiven or Coutard, they could swing it.
Well, it is Meteor Makers again that get that push cleared out. While this is happening, Amazing, he is picking up that red buff, making sure he doesn't use that smite, of course, because he needs it for this Dragon. And again, the lane's just shoving themselves. The poke keeps coming out from Charu, but he's down to half mana now already, and they're driving him down. Libic almost getting caught out there, quickly pops that shield, gives him that extra armor and ability, resistance. Keeps him safe, but Meteor Makers, they are trying to make a stealthy move of their own with Makana and Makler.
And there's that double stealth death squad we thought we would see earlier, but Makler does not have a Blade of the Ruined King quite yet. They still have an opportunity to catch one. Twitch is stealthed up. Look out!
The flash stun on towards Unlimited. He's going to go down. Mega Inferno Bomb closes it out the deal. Charu throwing out the bombs, throws out the mines. Youngbuck kept at bay, but meanwhile, Meteor Makers, they're making the pincer move. They're coming around the side. Makata steps in there. Flashes, gets his ultimate down. We do see Libic going down, but the damage actually coming back from Copenhagen Wolves. Kubon has to pop that and die in range. Is it going to be enough? Youngbuck's going to get focused on. He tries to flash away. The Ignite is taken, and it's Makler that gets in. The Ignite from Charu does get the kill. Amazing lands the kick on towards Kubon, but again, it's another kill picked up by Charu. Charu gets the double, but Forgiven, he's not done yet. He's continuing to chase, and they are both low. There's no tower there. They could keep on chasing on towards Makana. He uses the 90 caliber net to try and chase in, and Youngbuck comes around, pounces on towards Charu, gets one, gets the reset, jumps on towards him. The claws come out. Forgiven gets the kill. That is the ace. After all, but Libic's respawned in the time that fight went on.
That was a rather long fight right there, and even though MYM got the start they wanted to, they could not get the target down that they needed to, because they finished off Zyra, but that's now a 4-kill Caitlyn. So the start of the fight was clean. This is a little bit later into it. You could see Youngbuck thought he could take on Twitch, but he ended up getting them low enough. I have to say the finish there by Amazing was immaculate, because he's the one who really, A, finished off Tryndamere, and B, kept them interested long enough for Coutard and Forgiven to make their play.
So there is the middle turret going down. Copenhagen Wolves picking up a lot of gold off that singular fight, that singular ace, get themselves the Dragon, the tower, and look at it immediately, 25.6k to 22.2. Big advantages picked up by Copenhagen Wolves this time around. Can Meteor Makers react to it? Can they fight it back? Kubon up against Youngbuck, doesn't want any of it, immediately backs out this time around.
Yeah, the key difference is, to me, from the first game to this game, is that there's no monster tank Mundo in the top lane, which had a huge impact in a lot of these team fights. And then the obvious one, Copenhagen Wolves is ahead this time. They were either behind or just a little bit, or kind of even. And with a 3,000 gold lead, and this mid-game swing they can have with Forgiven having 5 kills might just be enough for them to make a very strong push for maybe a quick game.
Libic trying to set up something here to help out Makler, but instead we do see they are going to keep on pushing towards that turret, slowly grinding it down. But again, Youngbuck is making his way around. Coutard, sorry, getting ready to pounce, and he's going to come around the side. They may well go for this one. Instead, no. Zyra could have got something out there, but Tibbers was available again, and they were all too aware of that stun. But look at Meteor Makers. They're trying to collapse in on them down to the bottom.
Kuban walked through a ward, so they can definitely see this one coming, and they have to leave right now if they want to remain alive. Trying to turn is dangerous.
Kuban gets caught out of position, comes in there. He's going to have to pop that and die in range. Flashes away as well. So good advantage built, picked up by Copenhagen Wolves.
Yeah, right there, it was Kuban getting into position far too early because the minion wave hadn't arrived at Copenhagen Wolves' turret yet. So when they did commit onto Tryndamere, there was no assistance coming from Twitch and Annie. Just a mistake there by MYM.
And McKenna passing through a ward means they know his exact position. That means they feel safe, and they're actually pushing in towards that middle. Look at Youngbuck in his top lane, just chunking it down all on his own. Kuban is coming in, but he's took half the health off that turret already. They can't leave Youngbuck alone for long, because on Shyvana, he's really going to drive down those turrets.
This is the second game in a row, though, where he's struggled as a top laner. He was 1-5 at one point on his Nasus, and now he's 0-3 on Shyvana. He made a little chaos happen in that last fight, but he has to pick up his game if he wants to make it into the LCS now on his 3rd try.
His 3rd try, indeed. He's heard it himself. He feels this is his 3rd time lucky. We'll see if it is. Kuban, well, he's going to take a while to get going, but now with that Blade of the Rune King in, he's going to be a bit more fearsome in that team fight. And he's going to keep that pressure going. Meanwhile, Youngbuck, of course, we see the Randian's Omen coming out. First item completed once again.
Yeah, that's to be expected against Tryndamere. Now maybe he can push back a little bit. While Youngbuck hasn't been too effective on Tryndamere, neither has Kuban really, because the Tryndamere doesn't necessarily fit against a Shyvana who can build armor.
Yeah, he's not at the stage like he was in the last game. At this point, he was 5-1-1 on Mundo, that big tank that got in amongst them. But Charu himself, he's building differently this time around. We're going to see, I think, a Rabadon's Death Cap or a Zhonya's Hourglass. Not too sure which one of the first item will be. He's also got the Chalice in there as well. So he's got a number of options available to him, Charu, this time around.
I think just based off how successful the Zhonyas were for them last game, Charu is going to go with the Zhonyas very early on. And that is what he has to do against Coutard, who's maybe going to run away a bit on Kha'Zix.
Well, Kuban not feeling like he's winning this fight, and that's for sure, because Youngbuck has put in a lot of pressure down on towards him. They've almost both got the ultimates available. This time around, Kuban does back away. Not a lot of damage, suddenly realizing he's got a lot of armor. I can't seem to chunk him down like I was before.
Randuin's Omen and Ninja Tabi are extremely good against Tryndamere. Who would have guessed? And they picked it last, too, which Kuban has to see this coming, and it needs a plan to go up against Shyvana, but honestly, unless he can get in the back of team fights, Tryndamere has no place in this game right now.
He's definitely going to have to try and swing his way in there and get on towards Forgiven or Unlimited, because right now, Shyvana is running rings around him. And of course, Youngbuck, this time around, he's going to be pouncing through this fight. He's not going to have the problem they had on Nasus. He can jump straight onto Makler this time around.
And Makler also isn't on a champion like Lucian, so he has no way of moving away discreetly. He could maybe try and stealth away, but if he does that, the job has been accomplished by Youngbuck, and he's taken Twitch out of the fight.
And now the AD carries are both down that bottom lane again, looking to close in. Nobody really wants to fight each other, but it's a 5-0-1 Forgiven that has an obvious advantage in this fight should it happen.
Yeah, but Forgiven needs to remember the presence of Evelynn in these games, and he cannot make the mistake of forgetting it. If he tries to fight Makler, he would run into an Eve.
Well, we do see, look at this. They're closing it around him. Coutard is way up that lane. They may try and collapse, and no. Unlimited was coming in, but instead they backed away. They are just hanging around that blue buff. They're hoping that McKenna maybe will show himself and come around there. He was looking to try and make a play, but instead, everybody backs off. Nobody's going to get that pick.
Yeah, a little bit of non-action in the game. We have a bit of a lull here. It's because the Dragon isn't an objective at the moment. Baron against Ziggs, you risk taking a huge amount of damage, and Copenhagen Wolves has not successfully removed enough wards from MYM or warded enough themselves in the right spots to know where MYM is going to be.
Well, right now, Charu farms out, pushes out that mid, and again, they are keeping this gold advantage, Copenhagen Wolves, that they've had since that first ace they picked up just a couple of minutes ago over that Dragon. The Dragon, of course, is up in 10 seconds time. The blue buff is going to get stolen away by Copenhagen Wolves, and there's no counter from Meteor Makers this time around. Last time they were in at the blue buff and got their own back, but instead this time, Dragon almost freely given to Copenhagen Wolves.
It kind of has to be at this point, since Kuban on Tryndamere doesn't have a place in this game yet, and he's just really trying to farm up. It's almost like until Tryndamere has 2 or 3 more items, he's not going to have a real impact in this match. And Forgiven is thousands of gold ahead of the rest of the game right here, especially on Caitlyn, who doesn't fit in to the popular perception of the 3 big AD carries. But what Caitlyn can still keep doing is pushing down turrets, which is what they're trying to do right now.
Exactly, a free push almost given here to Copenhagen Wolves, completely out of position. They moved on for that blue, and they moved on to Libic. Libic flashing out, but gets kicked straight back into the Stranglethorns. Makler taken so low, has to use the barrier, will get taken down by the Static Shiver Forgiven.
6-0 on Caitlyn right now. The big question is, can Copenhagen Wolves maintain through this one? There is an Eve behind them that wants to start something.
Tryndamere looking to try and swing in as well, so they're trying to make a pincer play on towards Forgiven. Forgiven seemingly on his own. Kautar's closing in as well. Going towards Kuban. That's actually going to be an interesting fight between those two, but they're not going to go for it. Instead, Kuban, well, he finds himself in a 1v5 situation on the middle inner turret.
Yeah, the pushing is just not stopping from Copenhagen Wolves. This fast push strategy they're pulling off is working so well because Forgiven is so strong.
Well, look at Youngbuk causing himself to push in there. Ignite on towards Libic. It may be enough. Libic, oh, he survives on a slither. 10 health there, but it is the inner turret going down once again, and Copenhagen Wolves now 5-1 up in turrets.
Yeah, they waited out the lull just enough. They waited until they could catch a bit of a rotation on that back turret because there weren't many people defending it for MYM. They got the kill, and they ended up turning that into not just 1, but 2 turrets, and it gives them a very large lead in the game. This could be one of those games that we see back in Season 3, where a team takes a lot of turrets, controls the map, pushes at the right moments, and then gets a quick and decisive win. Let's see if Copenhagen Wolves can finish.
Well, Meteor Makers, they thought that the entire Copenhagen Wolves team would have backed off. That's why we saw Kuban and Makler trying to just drive straight up that mid lane, try and quickly get it down, use that Undying range, tank it out, but instead, 2 members stuck around from Wolves, and they weren't falling for it. You know, thinking back to the LCS, when Meteor Makers played, I'll go back to that in a moment because the kick coming in on towards Kuban. When they played, if they did not get the advantage at the start, if they could not get that tower down, I don't recall a game where ever they came back.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I remember them coming back was last game after they lost the lead, right? And that was a super late game, anything goes, just bloodbath, and that's not the case they're in right now. This is a very controlled match that Copenhagen Wolves is dictating entirely. You can just see Forgiven's items getting bigger and bigger. He actually skipped Last Whisper with that pickaxe and went straight for an Infinity Edge. Because if you look around Meteor Makers, remember, no tanks. He doesn't need a Last Whisper right now, and instead can just get even more outright damage and be even more of a monster.
And we should point out that Copenhagen Wolves, they'd actually qualified for DreamHack, but they never went because they didn't want to show any of their plays. And also, DreamHack was on 3.13, so everybody, and Ninjas in Pajamas is the exact same position, both withdrew from the tournament to practice for this point because they knew it's on 3.14. We have to sit and secure it. We can't show any plays. We can't waste any more time in 3.13. This is where the money's at.
And it's kind of interesting, too, because Copenhagen Wolves' bot lane right now is very much 2013 season bot lane. This is Caitlyn Zyra. It was a very classic lane. Even like Candy Pandit Nif played a whole bunch of it in Season 3 for SK. And it's what Copenhagen Wolves is dominating with right now. The very early double kill that Copenhagen Wolves picked up, thanks to an amazing gank from Amazing, really helped snowball him ahead in this match.
So far, it is Meteor Makers struggling out to really get anything from Copenhagen Wolves since that very early start, like I said, that very early advantage they picked up. They have just fallen steadily behind, and I'm not sure they want to fight for this one. We do see Kuban in that bottom lane teleporting back. He's going to come back towards it. Copenhagen Wolves, 4-man stacking here, and again, we see Youngbuk split pushing away down that bottom lane.
Yeah, if MYM decides for a fight, it would only be because they have a 5v4. They need to find a way to break the cycle of Copenhagen Wolves pushing down turrets without recourse.
Well, McKenna trying once again on Evelyn to make something happen. He did manage to assist in that lane early on, but again, I question at the Evelyn pick for Makane. It doesn't seem to suit his style. He doesn't seem to be able to make those plays for the lanes in the early game to get that Evelyn rolling, to get that damage down that you need.
Unless he can scare the lanes off of fast pushing, which Evelyn normally does, it's just not an impactful pick.
Well, we see the ace in the hole on Libic. That's going to force them away. That's the final inner turret in the top lane going down for Copenhagen Wolves. Now 6-1 in turrets, and they have full vision of the map, full control of the map, and it's Meet Your Makers that are really up against it now.
Yeah, and here's Kuban trying to be relevant right now on Youngbuck, and unless he gets back up from Eve, he's not going to be able to do too much. But Youngbuck was baiting him.
He was baiting him. The Ignite was used as well, and Youngbuck, with the support of the rest of the Wolves coming around, they managed to pick themselves up an easy blue buff, and it goes across the Coutard as well.
Dragon is up in 30 seconds, and it's going to be worth a whole bunch of gold right now. The Dragon's gold is actually based off of the average level in the game. It goes up to a max of 260 per person if everyone's level 15. And we're pretty close to that point, not quite there. So it's going to be worth, if I had to guess, around 1,100 gold, which is still a lot as Copenhagen Wolves tries to keep pulling ahead.
Interesting that Max is not taking the red. He's leaving it for
Tryndamere.
For Tryndamere. I'm thinking
at this point,
it has to be Tryndamere.
It has to be Tryndamere, because what MYM is saying is the only way they get back in this game is if Tryndamere can kill Youngbuck and become a threat on his own. And based on the results of their last skirmish, where he did get him a little low, the red buff, they think, could maybe tilt the scales a little bit in his favor. That's a pretty bold move.
With that static shift, I mean, he's definitely hitting a lot harder, a lot faster, but Youngbuck now almost got that Sunfire cape complete, and a Bilgewater Cutlass of his own is going to be a tanky beast. Didn't even bother popping his ultimate, remember, in that last fight. So he has got that damage turnaround that he could use if he needs it.
Yeah, and I don't know if that red buff choice is really going to have too big of an impact, because I think Copenhagen Wolves is going to start forcing either objectives like the Baron or inhibitor turrets really quickly. And with how much map pressure they have, since it is 6 turrets to 1, it's very difficult for Kuban to even begin pushing a lane, because it's just so much empty space between him and a turret he can actually threaten.
There is one big thing that Meet Your Makers have going for him, that Charu can keep those waves at bay. I think back to the Xerath game he had against the Dragonborns in the summer promotion series, where he just kept them at bay for so long. They did eventually lose the game, but he held that game out for a good 60 minutes, pretty much as the only person fed. But look at this, Makata, he's creeping around. Always in the hole's going to land on Libic. That's actually going to give his position away. Took a big chunk of health off him. Coutard now closing in on towards Makata, jumps on towards him, still does not have vision though.
And actually, if we look at Forgiven's build, he's built another BF sword, even though he's already completed both of the BF sword items. So that is a signal that they want to end the game now rather than later.
Well, this is a dangerous move. Don't forget, oh, the Mega Inferno Bomb's coming in way too early, and that's what they needed. That was the only item they had to try and steal it. Makata's coming in, tries to flash in, gets caught out. That's going to be a quick grasp in roots, and the Baron is taken by Copenhagen Wolves.
And it's a Tryndamere split push right now, but it is a Baron and a kill. So even if they send Shyvana back, which they are doing, they can still push up this with a man advantage.
Oh, look at that. They've cancelled it. Everybody's cancelled. You see Youngbuck's gone back, but the rest of them are just charging straight up there. Meanwhile, the rest of Meet Your Makers, they were trying to help out. They thought they could try and base race it down, but Copenhagen Wolves are running straight in. There's no way Makler will defend this inhibitor turret.
The only thing here for Copenhagen Wolves is there's no real tank to stop this turret. Lee Sin's going to do as much as he can, and they don't actually have the minions there yet.
Delayed by the minions. Charu is back. Everybody recalling. Red buff stolen by Kuban. And now, well, with that Baron, ace in the hole again on Libic. It's chunking him down. But they've managed to hold on to the inhibitor turrets. The question is for how long? Kuban trying to find any little advantage he can get. But Copenhagen Wolves are in full control right now.
Yeah, with his 388 attack damage build by Forgiven with just the massive BF swords, that ace in the hole is actually hitting for close to 1,300 damage right now. It's a pretty big punch right there. Any auxiliary damage there, and Libic would have been dead.
Kuban, full control, knew where he's going, cuts off Youngbuck there. The rest of the team do try and focus across, but again, they are holding him off. This is a Baron to up Copenhagen Wolves, remember, so they're trying to find a pick, but they are being kept at bay, and actually there's a lot of time being wasted by Meet Your Makers here to keep them at bay.
They're trying to wait out this Baron, and this is where we see a lot of teams stall so far in the 2014 season, is at the inhibitor turret ring. Pushing it on Ziggs is a task and a half, since he throws out those bombs early on. It's all about the split push right now for Copenhagen Wolves.
They're keeping Kuban away. Kuban has to back off, uses that ultimate to keep him alive, but that does buy time in this mid lane. Copenhagen Wolves will get this inhibitor turret down there. Charo desperately trying to keep them at bay, but the last shot from Forgiven will take the turret and the bottom turret. That's 2 inhibitor turrets taken down just with 1 little bit of pressure in the bottom lane.
12,000 gold lead and about 2 minutes left on this Baron. We could very well see a fight breaking out right for this inhibitor.
Inhibitor's going down. That's going to be a flash. Tibbers, will they manage to get the kill? Kautar has yet to go down and again survives. The regen comes in. He finally goes down. Forgiven though, he's got 2 members on him, but he's just kiting them around. The support of Unlimited comes in and it's a double kill for Forgiven. The Copenhagen Wolves, they can close the game out right here.
9-0-1 right there on Caitlyn. They are just dominating MYM in this one, from the fast push at the beginning to the Baron buff and a decisive push up the mid and bottom lane at the same time.
The Copenhagen Wolves, they're going to drive on through. It's going to be all square in the series. Will they finish the game right here, right now? Makler is trying to keep them at bay. Charo is trying to keep them at bay, but that Baron buff is still on, and the health regen, along with the damage, will get themselves the first Nexus. No, we won't, because they all back away. It's like watching CLG EU all over again.
Well, we are only 33 minutes in the game, not 63 minutes into the game. And this gives us a chance to look at the fight once again. You can see MYM tried to engage really heavily, but they couldn't even burst down Kautar. And this just kind of shows you how powerful Forgiven was. Even Unlimited wasn't helping him, and he basically took down Tryndamere and Eve just by himself. That's because Kuban was never able to farm up and get the items, and because Forgiven just went completely offensive with his build.
9-0-1 Forgiven. Reckless who is the question for the Copenhagen Wolves fans, because they have found themselves another fantastic replacement for him. We do see Kuban once again trying to clear out this top, but this so far, Tryndamere split pushing, doing whatever he can, has really not made any impact on the game. And honestly, the split pushing of Youngbuck, despite the fact he's 0-3-3, is actually what brought them all of that pressure in that bottom lane.
Yeah, Youngbuck has had a much better game 2 than he had game 1, because in team fights, he's able to get to targets and zone team fights quite effectively. I think to end this game here, Copenhagen Wolves just needs to group up one more time, push down the one lane that doesn't have the inhibitor down yet, which is the top lane, and just let their massive farm and item advantage take shape.
So let's see what they do. Copenhagen Wolves calming things down. Dragon is up. They're going to go probably clear that one out. Baron is a good 2 minutes away, so they're not going to go for that one just yet. And they have no reason to really push in with the speed, but it seems like the top inhibitor turret is the focus they want to go with. And actually, with MYM makers showing themselves way down the lane, Charo is well out of position, and the Copenhagen Wolves could just shove straight in for this.
Yeah, and you can actually see Youngbuck is trying to stop them from defending a little bit coming in. They have a bit of free time to wail on this turret, and this means MYM would have to maybe try another desperation initiation. That's a bad start.
That's a bad start, and that means Libic's going to have to back away. No Tibbers today, thank you very much. That's going to be the 3rd inhibitor turret going down, and now they're just going to drive on through for the inhib. It's pretty much exposed, and there's not a lot that MYM can do.
They're being a little cautious so that they don't throw this one away, but it is close to being decided. If they get a fight, unless all of their squishies die immediately, they're going to win it.
McCalla trying to come around the side, tries to come in, tries to create a play, but it's not going to happen. There's too much damage. Kuban does manage to get himself a support kill, but honestly, that is all you are going to get, because we do see Libic going down. We see Unlimited getting himself on towards it. McCalla's in all sorts of trouble. There's a big dragon burning out his backside. He does manage to get a double kill for Kautar as well. That will be the game, ladies and gentlemen. The Copenhagen Wolves have managed to bite back on Meet Your Makers, and it is now all square 1-1.
And this was a very decisive victory by Copenhagen Wolves, especially from Forgiven's Caitlyn. You say the trinity of 80 carries right there. Forgiven's got other ideas. This is all tied up.
All tied up and well. Copenhagen Wolves reacting exactly like they were required. Everybody has them as favorites. You guys at home, 63% of you had voted for the Wolves. And honestly, after such a strong, dominant first game from Meet Your Makers, despite the fact Copenhagen Wolves had a glimmer of hope, they looked incredible in that game.
Yeah, that was the controlled style that a lot of us thought Copenhagen Wolves was going to have in game 1. And now it's kind of time for MYM, with their coach who they brought on site now, which did not happen during the LCS, to really try and go back to the drawing board, because there were very similar compositions from MYM in both games 1 and 2. Ziggs is a core champion, Eve is a core champion, and it was much worse this time around.
Much worse indeed. And honestly, the picks, you gotta look at that. They went fairly similar. And I guess you thought, well, we won the last game, well, why not stick to the same? Whereas you look at, like, say, teams like Fnatic will go and dominate a game and then completely pull out different picks in the next game because it said, you can't play the same all the time because everybody will figure out how to counter it very quickly.
And this was actually one of MYM's issues back when they finished 8th place in the LCS. They started so well with the teleport strategies because they had that one thing prepared and it caught people off guard. As soon as the rest of the LCS adapted, MYM didn't. Now that took a week. Did this just happen in one game for Copenhagen Wolves? Is MYM going to have something else to bring out? As soon as Mundo got banned, that Tryndamere top lane was not a good option.
Well, we have got to take a quick break, but when we return, the Copenhagen Wolves and Meet Your Makers take to the Rift for Game 3 at tied at 1 apiece, I should say. Here's how the series is. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. The 2014 Spring Promotion Tournament, it's only just started. We will be right back.